October 28, 1943. Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Sailors would later claim that the USS Eldridge vanished in a flash of blue light, reappeared 300 kilometers away in Norfolk, and came back with men fused into steel. Some said it was a secret Navy teleportation experiment called Project Rainbow. Some said Einstein's unified field theory was weaponized. Some said the government erased the proof. But here's the real question. If none of this was ever confirmed, if the ship's logs place it somewhere else, if the Navy denies it ever happened, then why did thousands believe it? And why does this legend refuse to die? Tonight, we're not telling a ghost story. We're dissecting one. In 1955, a man named Carlos Miguel Allende began writing letters. He claimed to have witnessed something impossible. According to his story, on October 28, 1943, he was aboard the SS Andrew Furuseth when he saw a U.S. Navy destroyer escort disappear in a flash of green-blue light. The ship, he claimed, reappeared in Norfolk, Virginia, over 300 kilometers away, and then returned to Philadelphia within minutes. The ship was allegedly the USS Eldridge. The experiment, he said, was called Project Rainbow. The purpose? To make a warship invisible. Not metaphorically, literally invisible, and perhaps something more. But here's what makes this story powerful. There were no official documents supporting it, no naval record confirming teleportation, no verified crew testimony. The legend did not begin in 1943. It began in 1955. In a letter, and that changes everything. The USS Eldridge DE-173 was a Cannon-class destroyer escort. It was launched on July 25, 1943, commissioned on August 27, 1943. Its job was simple: escort convoys, hunt submarines, protect cargo. We have naval records of its movements. And here's the key fact. On October 28, 1943, the day of the alleged teleportation, the Eldridge was not in Philadelphia. Naval convoy logs place it in the Bahamas, conducting shakedown training exercises. These logs are preserved. The dates align, the coordinates match. If the ship was in the Bahamas, it could not have been in Philadelphia, and it certainly could not have jumped to Norfolk. This alone collapses the foundation of the legend. But the story doesn't end there, because something real was happening in 1943, just not teleportation. During World War II, Germany deployed magnetic naval mines. These mines did not require contact. They detonated when they detected the magnetic field of a steel ship passing overhead. And every steel ship produces a magnetic signature. To counter this threat, the British developed a technique called degaussing, rozmagnicowanie. Electrical cables were wrapped around the hull of ships, and controlled electric current passed through them. This generated a counter-magnetic field. The result, the ship's magnetic signature was reduced. Mines would not detect it. This was real. This was documented. This was widespread. Thousands of ships were degaussed during the war, including American destroyer escorts. To an untrained observer, seeing massive electrical cables installed around a hull could look extraordinary. Powerful currents, sparks, electromagnetic equipment. Rumors spread easily in wartime. Add secrecy, add limited understanding, add post-war paranoia, and reality becomes something else. Carlos Miguel Allende sometimes spelling his name Carl Allen, was not a naval officer. He was not a physicist. He was not part of any classified program. He was a merchant seaman with a history of erratic behavior. In 1955, he began writing letters to a man named Morris K. Jessup. Jessup was an astronomer and author who had written a book titled The Case for the UFO. Allende claimed that Jessup's theories about advanced physics were already proven in 1943, on a Navy ship. He said he personally witnessed the experiment from another vessel. But here's the problem. His letters were inconsistent. Dates changed, details shifted, spellings varied. He used unusual capitalization and strange phrasing. Some researchers later suggested he may have struggled with mental instability. Yet his letters did something powerful. They planted a seed. In 1957, the Office of Naval Research received a copy of Jessup's book. It was heavily annotated. The margins were filled with strange notes written in different colored inks. The notes referenced alien beings, advanced physics, and something resembling the Philadelphia experiment. The Navy briefly examined the book, not because teleportation was confirmed, but because they wanted to understand who was sending it. After limited internal review, the matter was dropped. No formal investigation, no confirmation, no secret admission, just bureaucratic curiosity. But to conspiracy-minded observers, the mere fact that the Navy looked at the book became proof. And this is how myths grow, not from evidence, but from interpretation. In 1959, Morris Jessup was found dead in his car in Florida. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Official ruling, suicide. He had been struggling financially. His book sales had declined. He was under stress. But for believers in the Philadelphia experiment, his death was not personal tragedy. It was elimination. They claimed he was silenced. There is no evidence supporting that. No classified file, no whistleblower, no declassified memo. Yet the timing, after years of strange correspondence, reinforced the myth. Tragedy became narrative fuel, and narrative is stronger than fact. The 1950s were not a calm decade. The atomic bomb was real. Hiroshima and Nagasaki had happened. The hydrogen bomb followed. Governments were conducting classified research on nuclear weapons, radar, stealth, submarines, early computing. To the public, science had become both miraculous and terrifying. If the government could split the atom, why couldn't it bend space? If radar could make planes invisible to detection, why couldn't ships be invisible too? Fear creates imagination. Imagination creates stories, and stories create belief. The Philadelphia experiment fit perfectly into Cold War anxiety. Secret programs, brilliant scientists, unintended consequences, silenced witnesses. It felt plausible, even if it wasn't. Historians who examined official Navy deck logs found no record of teleportation, no experimental field generators, no classified note labeled Project Rainbow. The USS Eldridge's documented timeline places it in New York, then Bermuda, then the Bahamas during late October 1943. Convoy assignments are consistent, fuel logs align, crew rosters remain intact. In fact, several crew members later stated publicly that no such experiment occurred. Some of them expressed frustration that the myth followed the ship for decades. The Eldridge was eventually sold to Greece in 1951, renamed HS Leon, served until 1992. If teleportation had damaged the vessel, if sailors had fused into steel, if catastrophic experiments occurred, Maintenance records would show structural anomalies. They do not.
By the 1970s, the Philadelphia experiment was no longer just a rumor. It had become a cultural phenomenon. Books were written, radio shows discussed it, late-night television specials treated it as unresolved mystery. And here's the turning point. The story stopped being about evidence. It became about trust, or rather, the lack of it. Vietnam had shaken public confidence in government. Watergate had exposed real political deception. The CIA's secret programs were being revealed. So when people heard the Navy denies it, that denial did not calm suspicion, it fueled it. Because for the first time in modern American history, citizens had proof that their government could lie. And once trust cracks, everything becomes possible, even teleportation. The original 1955 letters from Allende were strange but relatively restrained. There was talk of invisibility, magnetic fields, strange side effects. But by the 1970s and 80s, the story had grown darker. Sailors were said to have fused into the ship's hull, burst into flames, become mentally unstable, and traveled through time. None of these claims appear in original naval records, none are supported by primary documentation, but legends do not shrink over time, they expand. Each retelling adds detail, each author adds drama, each documentary adds suspense, and soon the myth becomes more vivid than reality ever was. Why do intelligent people believe extraordinary stories without evidence? Because myths serve emotional needs. The Philadelphia experiment offers secret knowledge, hidden science, government cover-up, forbidden technology. It turns ordinary history into mystery. It gives complexity to chaos. It provides a dramatic explanation for the unknown. And most importantly, it suggests that reality is deeper than what we're told. For many, that is comforting, even if it is not true. Unlike ghost stories or folklore, the Philadelphia experiment attaches itself to real objects, a real ship, a real date, real naval records, a real scientist, a real death. That anchor to reality makes the fiction feel credible. But when historians compare documented logs, crew interviews, ship movement records, and engineering data, the extraordinary claims collapse. What remains is something far more human, a chain reaction of letters, interpretation, Cold War fear, and cultural distrust. Not a scientific breakthrough, not a secret weapon, but a narrative that filled a psychological vacuum. Here is what we know with documentation. Magnetic mines existed. They were deadly. They detonated when they sensed a ship's magnetic field. The solution was degaussing, electrical cables installed along the hull to neutralize magnetic signatures. Ships undergoing degaussing often appeared surrounded by heavy wiring and electrical equipment. From a distance, or from another vessel, unusual lighting or electrical discharge could look dramatic. Combine that with wartime secrecy, add years of retelling, and something ordinary becomes extraordinary. No teleportation is required, no unified field theory weaponized, no sailors embedded in steel, only human storytelling. The Philadelphia experiment persists for one reason. It cannot be conclusively disproven to everyone. Because believers do not require documentation, they require possibility. And as long as governments conduct classified research, as long as military programs remain secret, as long as trust remains fragile, stories like this will survive. But history is not built on fear. It is built on records, and the records do not support teleportation. They support degaussing. They support Cold War paranoia. They support the power of narrative.
In 1943, no ship vanished, but in 1955, a story appeared, and that story has traveled farther than any warship ever could.